Weaving is the life of the people of Pasay. It has been there for centuries already. But now we plan to give it more life, from ordinary mats to something more contemporary na maging part siya ng fashion. Lara is one way of revolutionizing the banig industry, but it does not end there.
Ako po ay si Anita Mindova Ogrimin. Ako po yung presidente ng Basay Association for Native Industry Growth, in short, BANIG. Nakakataba ng aming puso na global na pag-uusapan na ito yung ginagawa ng mga weavers ng Basay. Nung tulungan po kami ni Congresswoman Antan, umangat yung presyo ng banig. Sa ngayon, nakakatulong na kami sa pamilya namin. Pangarap po namin na magkaroon kami ng sariling processing center ng banig. Pangarap din namin, mas umangat pa ang buhay ng mga weavers at saka yung mga nagtatanim din ng tikog.
Gusto namin na ma-encourage yung creativity ng mga Samarno, ng mga Basaynon para mas mapansin pa yung industry na to. And hopefully, it will alleviate poverty as well.
Research enthusiasts and iPOVCON warriors, good afternoon. Wow, the day keeps getting hotter here in Catbalogan City, Summer, Philippines, as the whole world beat COVID-19, alleviate poverty, and sustain development. Thank you so much for saying yes to this call for change. Changed your mind yet? I'm sure you haven't. As the iPovcon proceeds session after session, I'm sure the weight grows heavier, but the urge gets stronger to live and rise above the crisis. I would like to inform everyone that our afternoon session will begin shortly. Please kindly ensure that the protocols for this event are followed. First, your name in Zoom shall appear coded by your honorific name underscore affiliation. Example, Miss Jessa underscore SSU. Second, if possible, please turn on your camera and microphone when called upon. Third, if possible, please turn on the lights. Fourth, if possible, please turn on the lights. Just a little housekeeping before we started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box or in your Zoom control panel. I'll bring them up during the open forum because we will have time for questions at the end. Let us be guided by our online rules and netiquette. First, turn off the notifications. Those little pings are just to alert you that your session is being recorded. Second, turn on the lights. Those pings are just to alert you that your session is being recorded. Second, turn on the lights. If you can get proper lighting, please do so. Sit near a window or have a bright lamp nearby. Look at the camera when talking. It's a bit awkward at first, but your audience will appreciate eye contact. Mute your mic if you are not talking. Clear the space behind you. See if you can move your camera so it is directed to a wall or a clear spot. Please come early. If someone is late, there is no need to recap. Keep it professional. Maintain professional posture and appearance. Stay present. You might miss out on key information. If you are using a webcam, use attentive body language. Be patient with participants and allow some grace for any miscommunications that may occur. Stay alert in your virtual rooms as our virtual conference will begin shortly. Thank you, and we'll be right back. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it is extremely expensive to be poor. That is why we must avail the most powerful ticket out of poverty. And I believe that is what you or we rather are doing today, changing the world through research with a heart. Research enthusiasts and iPOVCON warriors were still on the second International Conference on Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development. And welcome to the second day afternoon session, which I would say is one of the highlights you don't want to miss out. Yes, we continue to start a movement. We continue to respond to a call for a change, and we continue to empower. And we are now starting to live and rise above the crisis. People of the Philippines and people of the world, are you still up for this challenge? Absolutely, yes. And this time, ladies and gentlemen, the poverty conference, I would say, was made even bigger, bolder, and historic more than ever because of the speakers who have graced this event with us. And right at this very moment, we are sincerely honored to be supported by one of the key players of development in the Philippines. Through his passion as an academician, administrator, and as the chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education, we as UCs have been empowered. For he has become the inspiration of every single person in the academe. Yes, he himself is with us now. And to introduce the keynote speaker this afternoon is the Vice President for Academic Affairs of Summer State University. Please do the honors, Dr. Felisa E. Gomba.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker and a person known to all for his excellent and strong leadership in the Philippine higher education. Our keynote speaker is an alumnus of University of the Philippines, where he obtained his Bachelor of Arts in History and his doctorate degree in Public Administration. He is also an alumnus of De La Salle University for his Master of Arts degree in Social Sciences and Political Science. Our keynote speaker is a professor of public administration at the University of the Philippines in the fields of demography, population, environmental policy, higher education governance, legislative studies, monitoring and evaluation, non-governmental organization, policy analysis, political management, and social development. He served as Vice President for Public Affairs at UP System. He also served as the Director of two National College of Public Administration and Governance Centers, the Center for Policy and Executive Development, and the Center for Leadership, Citizenship, and Democracy. Our keynote speaker brings with him extensive experience in the Philippine government, having served as technical assistant, chief of staff, senior consultant, and senior advisor to former Senate President Aquilino Pimentel Jr. and Senate President pro tempore Sotero Laurel, and many other senators. He is an internationally recognized political analyst and opinion maker whose views are extensively quoted by foreign and local media. He is a commissioner of United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organizations, or UNESCO. He was a Fulbright Hays visiting scholar at the University of Southern California and the California State University, Sacramento, a senior Fulbright visiting professor, fellow at the Johns Hopkins University. He served at the Committee of Revenue and Taxation of the California State Legislature and was the first recipient of a California State Assembly resolution, specifically Resolution Number 7, given by Speaker Willie Brown, commending his work at the California Legislature in 1992. He served as a member and advisor to the Philippine delegation to the 1994 United Nations Conference on Population and Development held in Cairo, Egypt. In 1995, United Nations World Summit on Social Development in Copenhagen. In 1996, United Nations World Food Summit in Rome. And in 2002, United Nations Special Session on Children in New York. As a political strategist, he has run many political campaigns at the national and local levels and serves as the president of the Association of Political Consultants in Asia. Our keynote speaker was appointed as officer in charge of the Commission on Higher Education in 2016. He was the first commissioner who openly supported the free tuition bill in Congress that provided wider access to higher education. In January 24, 2018, he was appointed by His Excellency President Rodrigo Roa Duterte as chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education. The dynamism, fast development of Commission on Higher Education, Samar State University, and the rest of 111 state university and colleges and private higher education institutions in the Philippines can be attributed to the unrelenting initiatives and committed efforts of our keynote speaker. SSU was so fortunate that our keynote speaker became chairman of the SSU Board of Regents, for he was an instrument in the modernization of the Civil Engineering Laboratory ISO 9001:2015 certification, support funds to research projects, the training on community colleges sponsored by CHED CBEI Canada, support to SSU as top patent filer award. Also, SSU is so lucky, CHED provided us with support fund for the SSU response to COVID-19 programs and projects through the initiative of our keynote speaker. For almost 4 years in leading Commission Higher Education, we have witnessed his commitment and passion to promote excellence in higher education for social responsibility, sustainability, and engagements locally and abroad. Several initiatives were implemented under his leadership to ensure quality higher education by requiring all higher education institutions, including state universities and colleges, curricular program be compliant to the minimum standards in order to produce holistically developed and civic-minded critical thinkers, lifelong learners, innovators, job creators, and entrepreneurs. No wonder he is our keynote speaker today. On behalf of the Samar State University President and the Samar State community, ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our keynote speaker, the Chairperson of the Commission on Higher Education and the Chairperson of the University of the Philippines Board of Regents, Honorable J. Prospero E. de Vera III.
Thank you very much for that rather long introduction. I feel so old with a very long introduction. First, let me start by greeting the Honorable Michael Tan, the Governor of Samar Province, the Honorable Edgar Sarmiento, the representative of the First District of Samar, the Honorable Shari Antan, the representative of the Second District of Samar, Honorable Jerry Treñas of Iloilo City, my member of the commission, Commissioner Aldrin Darilag, who is also the chair of the Samar State University Board of Regents, our experts and speakers from other countries, Dr. Christopher Galloway of Massey University, Dr. Anthony Halog from the University of Queensland, Dr. De Phung Van from Thrabin University, our university presidents who are here in Region 8 and other parts of the country, led by President Marilyn Cardoso of Samar State University, the SSU Board of Regents, Ms. Reclines de la Serna of the National Anti-Poverty Commission, university officials, other guests, and everyone watching on Facebook Live. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. I would like to congratulate the Samar State University as it holds its second international conference on poverty alleviation and sustainable development. I remember, I think I was still chair of Samar State when the first international conference was held, if I'm not mistaken. And I had wanted to attend the conferences in Region 8, but time did not permit during those very busy times. I hope when things improve, I can be invited personally to join this conference in subsequent years. I am also glad to know that the 10 state universities and colleges of Eastern Visayas are all partner collaborators of this event, including Northwest Samar State University, Biliran Province State University, Eastern Visayas State University, Eastern Samar State University, Leyte Normal, Palompon Institute of Technology, St. Paul College of Professional Studies, Southern Leyte State University, University of Eastern Philippines, and Visayas State University. So to all the university presidents of these institutions who are here, I commend you for your effort in working together with Samar State University to organize this important undertaking. Our theme today, Living and Rising Above Crisis, is both timely and necessary. Historically, the link between education and poverty reduction has been one of the most studied areas in education research. Studies all over the world have shown that investments in education is very strongly correlated to the creation of a highly educated, better trained, and more employable workforce. Educational achievement is strongly correlated with higher paying jobs, the ability of people to raise better and more educated children, higher social mobility, and getting out of poverty. More educated women also delay marriage and produce better educated children. One can argue that education is the best family planning method because it improves the quality of life of children and families. The Philippines has been able to significantly reduce poverty under the administration of President Rodrigo Roa Duterte at levels that have not been seen in the recent past. But COVID-19 has changed all of that. The United Nations University World Institute for Development Economics Research estimates that global poverty could increase for the first time since the 1990s. And depending on the poverty line, this could represent a reversal of approximately a decade in the world's progress in reducing poverty. On the national level, the poverty rate in the Philippines can increase by as much as 3.3% this year during the economic fallout. In the education landscape, the pandemic is causing more than 1.6 billion children and young adults to be out of school in 161 countries all over the world. This is close to 80% of the world's enrolled students, and the pandemic has the potential to worsen those outcomes even more if we do not act fast. In Philippine higher education, several small colleges have already informed the Commission that they will not open this school year. We also see a decline in the enrollment of many private colleges and universities. Although higher education institutions were quick to replace face-to-face lectures with flexible learning, COVID-19 has reconstructed the whole concept of learning and practice of teaching. Perhaps most importantly, the crisis has raised questions about the value of what is university education, which has been looked upon and framed on in the past in terms of networking, social opportunities, and educational content. To remain relevant, therefore, higher education institutions will need to reinvent their learning environments so that digitization expands and complements student-teacher and other relationships. So the question that we ask ourselves today is, are our institutions and our students prepared to live and rise above this crisis? What can higher education institutions offer that will remain valuable despite the crisis? And what do we do now, as in the midst of the crisis, we are now preparing to open up the economy, to open up activities of the country so that we can go back not only to save lives, but also to save jobs and to let the economy grow. I have to tell you, my friends, that when the pandemic broke, no country was prepared. No one can say that he or she is an expert in handling a pandemic, because the Philippines, and for that matter the whole world, has not experienced a pandemic of this magnitude in its recent past. What has COVID-19 brought to the country, aside from lost jobs, lost opportunities, and a slowdown in the development of the country? COVID-19 has exposed the deficiencies and weaknesses, not just in higher education, but in our national development strategy. We have not given enough attention to connectivity or to distance or open education like what other countries have done. We have designed our educational infrastructure solely on face-to-face learning. We have not been nimble and flexible in the way we design our classes, our internship programs, our student services. This is what COVID-19 has exposed as the weaknesses of the way we do things. And it is therefore urgent that we recognize this and immediately and expeditiously work on this. But COVID-19 has also brought out the best in us. All over the country, we are seeing our higher education institutions rise up to the challenges through their creativity and public service. My belief in the brilliance of our universities is the reason why the Commission on Higher Education adopted a flexible learning policy immediately upon the imposition of quarantine restrictions in May 2020. I have seen how our SOCs produced COVID-related products, face masks, face shields, alcohol, alcohol, and many others for distribution to frontliners, local governments, and local communities. I have seen how individual HEIs are working hard to shift to flexible learning so they open the school year or so they can open the school year. And I have seen HEIs in the regions like Region 8 who have formed consortiums so they can help each other. In my capacity as a member of the IATF, I have ensured that the voice of our HEIs is heard in the deliberations of government policies and strongly ensured support for displaced faculty and students having difficulties with connectivity. We thank Congress and the President for listening to our call by providing 600 million pesos to affected students, 300 million pesos to affected faculty members, and 3 billion pesos to create smart campuses through the Bayanihan 2 law. In fact, as you may all know, I have been criticized and pilloried in the media and on social media for asserting that our universities and the higher education sector is ready to open the school year. I have been criticized because of the demand of some critics that there must be an academic freeze. But we must recognize the innovations and preparedness of our HEIs, many of whom are here with us today. I cannot support an academic freeze because our universities and our educational stakeholders are ready and prepared. We aim to leave no student behind as we push for the opening of classes through flexible learning, allowing for various modes of delivery to complement and reinforce each other, and ensuring that students can continue to learn even during these challenging times. Although it has always been a challenge, I have observed since I joined CHED that inter-HEI collaboration remains an elusive and daunting challenge. Our HEIs, both public and private, unfortunately, have viewed each other as competitors and are very reluctant to reach out and work together. As I have said before, and I continue to assert now, the time for competition between Philippine HEIs is over. The time for collaboration is now and is made more critical because of the pandemic. The time for collaboration is now, and technology allows for better collaboration. This pandemic has expanded the possibilities of connecting. We have Zoom and many other platforms where our HEIs can jumpstart their collaboration. That is why our HEIs must work on to be able to rise and live above the crisis. This is the time to gear up learning management systems and networking. More affluent and better prepared universities are encouraged to make their online resources available to HEIs which are less prepared. Such academic partnership and networks should receive dedicated support on the national level. In fact, the Commission launched the Philippines CHED Connect. Excuse me. In, let me get my voice back. In fact, the Commission launched Philippines CHED Connect, a portal for educational resources. As of today, we have a total of 1,600 plus educational materials shared in this website by HEIs. And for fiscal year 2021, we have allotted funding of about 100 million pesos for the procurement of course materials, so more of our HEI design materials could be shared. And this brings me to my final point. Keep your institutions and your students engaged with and embedded in society. Let us show our students that the power of technology can do good in our community. Let us be flexible not only in our policies, but on how we think as individuals. To rise above the crisis means to adapt to change and to be creative on living with the new normal this crisis has brought us. We need to innovate and trailblaze new grounds. Ladies and gentlemen, let this point serve as my humble contribution to this discourse. CHED under our watch will ensure that policies, programs, and priorities will not disadvantage HEIs as we build a more resilient higher education system. It is my hope that we will together continue to ensure that access, equity, and excellence is spread not just in the HEIs, but even in the smallest municipalities and cities in the country. So, again, how do we live and rise above the crisis? One, which we should see opportunities rather than obstacles during the times of crisis. We should take these opportunities to change the educational landscape, which was very difficult before because of conventional thinking and structural and policy limitations. This is the time where universities can experiment, can work together, can form consortiums, can be innovative in curriculum development, can be innovative in the way we do internship on OJT programs. This is the time where we can use funds of the universities to improve connectivity, to demand from our Board of Regents flexibility in our operations. Two, we must recognize and harness the brilliance of our universities, of our faculty, of our students, and be flexible in everything we do. Finally, we must work together. As the mantra of CHED clearly states, we learn as one. Congratulations at mabuhay kayong lahat.
Access, equity, and excellence for all. Wow. Chairperson Vera, we would like to let you know that all you have told us this afternoon were etched in our hearts and minds. You never fail to inspire your SUCs. Because of your help, we can live and rise above the crisis. All thanks to you once again, Chairperson Vera. You deserve a recognition for all that you have done for the country and the whole world. So allow us to present to you this symbol of our appreciation. Certificate of recognition is awarded to Honorable J. Prospero E. De Vera III, DPA, in grateful recognition for his invaluable insights and expertise rendered as keynote speaker. Dr. Cardoso would like to give her words of gratitude.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pacoma. In behalf of Summer State University, Chair Popoy, in behalf of our co-host, Northwest Summer State University, and our partner SUCs and HEIs in the region, we are very much honored to have you. And thank you so much because we have witnessed your passion and your dedication to serve, which intensified during the pandemic. Thank you, Sir Popoy, for being part of our iPOVCON 2020. And thank you for the inspiration and the motivation. Mabuhay po kayo, Chair Popoy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Marilyn D. Cardoso. Our co-host would also like to say something to our chairperson, Dr. Benjamin L. Picayo. Sir? Once again, we would like to hear the words of gratitude of Dr. Benjamin L. Picayo, the Northwest Summer State University president, our co-host for this year's iPOVCON.
Hello. Am I heard?
Hello, sir. Yes. Yes, sir. We can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon to each and everyone. On behalf of Northwest Summer State University, we want to extend our heartfelt thanks to Sir Pupoy for your support, motivation, and inspiration to succeed and resonate. We are deeply honored for sharing your precious time with us and gracing the second International Poverty Conference. And thank you very much, sir. Mabuhay po kayo.
Thank you so much, Dr. Benjamin L. Picayo. Once again, our chairperson, J. Prospero de Vera III, giving his full support to Eastern Visayas for this iPOVCON 2020. We salute you, chairperson. It is said that music is God's gift to man, the only art of heaven given to earth, and the only art of earth we take to heaven. That is why Chairperson De Vera allow us to give you this gift of song titled Ikaw Lamang Ang Aking Iibigin. This echoes the sentiments of our hearts right now. So please welcome the Northwest Summer State University singers with their choral master, Mr. Jonathan Theo C. Robles. Wow, indeed, NWSSU is the powerhouse of chorale in the region. This time, we will continue with our breakout session for the research presentations. You may now go back to your virtual Zoom rooms. We have almost 50 presenters this year. What a number! Just the right amount of papers to fuel the engine for change. The iPOVCON could be seen as one of the many initiatives we could do to mitigate poverty, a step on a journey, a piece of the whole. We ourselves may feel that what we are doing is just a drop in the ocean, but the ocean would be less because of that missing drop. What we do today matters. Our country's future matters. Thus, this iPOVCON matters. See you, everyone, and keep safe. Once again, you may now go back to your track virtual Zoom rooms. We are going to send our links on the Zoom group chat. The track for participants and presenters may stay on this virtual Zoom room. I
Ha? Dilag gawas. Dilag gawas. Ha?
Poverty alleviators, welcome back to our afternoon session. I assume that you have already taken your lunch and are now ready for the next set of presenters. O, kamustahin ko muna kayo, no? Can you say yes if you are now ready? Please say yes. Yes na yes pa rin, no? I know Shesta
Yes, we
is
are
knocking on our doors.
ready.
Yes, thank you
Yes,
so
yes,
much.
we are now ready.
That's nice. Nice to hear that. I know Shasta is knocking on our doors, but let's do our best not to slumber or to feel sleepy since we still have presentations we need to look forward to. You are still with me, Jeff, your moderator, and I welcome you all to the Day 2's afternoon session. We will start where we left off. So our first presenter is from Aklan State University. She has a paper titled Local Government Unit Support to Environmental Management Programs as Viewed by the Citizens of Lezo Aklan. Let's welcome Miss Jayani Loy D. Yekla.
Good day, everyone. I'm Charis Perdita from the Visayas State University, and I'm going to present to you the study entitled Coping Mechanisms of Men and Women Farmers.
We are having a technical problem here, but let's just wait for the paper presentation of our presenter. We would like to inform other presenters to please get ready once you'll be chosen or you're selected to present your paper. Right now, we will be witnessing the recorded video of our presenter.
Good day, everyone. I am Miss Yaniloy D. Yekla of Akron State University, and I am to present the research study entitled Local Government Units Support Environmental Management Programs as Viewed by the Citizens of Lezo Aklan. The research team is composed of the following members. The study was conducted by Akron State University and was funded by DALG. The study location was in Lezo Aklan and was conducted last April 2018 to December 2018. The performance of the local government unit of Lezo Aklan in the delivery of environmental management programs was measured adopting the Citizen Satisfaction Index System or CSIS. It is designed as a system of mechanisms aimed to generate citizens' feedback on local government's performance on service delivery and the citizens' general satisfaction. It also served as a tool for drawing in applicable information in measuring citizen satisfaction that can be utilized for agenda setting of economic and human development plans and goals of the LGU. This study was conducted to evaluate the performance of local government unit of Lezo Aklan in the delivery of environmental management programs. Specifically, this study aimed to answer the following questions. What is the respondents' rating and its reasons in the delivery of the following environmental management programs? Community-based greening projects, air pollution control programs, solid waste management, wastewater management, and cleanup programs are projects. Second, what are the respondents' experiences on solid waste management as to how they dispose their garbage, who collect their garbage, whether or not they practice waste segregation, and the regularity of garbage collection. Third, what is the overall satisfaction rating of the respondents on environmental management? What is the overall need for action rating of the respondents on environmental management programs? Fifth, what are the recommendations from citizens on environmental management programs? This study followed this concept. Inside the citizen's perception, there are four core concepts. These are awareness, availment, satisfaction, and need for action, from where the attitudes of the citizens toward LGU were drawn. For the methodology, there were 150 respondents from the LGU. There were males and females, and they are at least 18 years old during the time of interview, and they must be a resident of the target LGU for at least 6 months during the time of interview. The table represents how spot numbers in each barangay were derived. The study utilized the multi-stage probability sampling. The Kish grid represents how probability respondent from each household was identified. The respondents will be asked of their awareness of the service. If they are not aware, then proceed to the next service. If they are aware, they will be asked if they did avail. If they did not avail, they will be asked of the reason why, then proceed to the next service. If they did avail, they will be asked of their satisfaction. Whether they are satisfied or not, they will be asked of the reason why, and they will be asked also if the service still needs action, then proceed to the next service. Data processing involved coding and processing of quantitative and qualitative data. For data analysis, percentage scores and adjectival equivalents were used. The figure shows how percentage scores were derived, and another figure shows how adjectival ratings were interpreted. For the survey results, regarding the awareness on environmental management programs, there is high awareness on community-based greening projects, solid waste management, and cleanup projects or programs, while there is low awareness on air pollution control program and wastewater management. On the availment of the environmental management programs, only solid waste management got low availment. Some of the reasons provided for the non-availment of environmental management programs included not interested, not implemented, and not participating. The respondents were asked of how they disposed their garbage, and most of them burned their garbage, followed by the number of those who bury. 3 of the respondents said that their garbage is being collected, and 2 said that it is being collected by the municipality, while the other one said that it is being collected by the barangay. Out of the 3 respondents who said that their garbage are being collected, 2 of them said that they practice waste segregation, while the other one did not. In terms of regularity of garbage collection, 2 said that it is being collected every day, while the other one is once a week. The satisfaction rating with all the environmental management programs were high. The reasons provided for satisfaction of the environmental programs were beneficial to the environment, clean and safe air, proper collection of garbage, maintained, and beneficial. While the reasons for dissatisfaction included no regulation implemented, still polluted, there is irregularity or late collection, there is poor maintenance, and not held regularly. For the program's need for action, all the environmental management programs get low adjectival rating for need for action. The overall rating says that there is high satisfaction among the environmental management programs, yet there is also a high need for action. The top 3 recommendations from citizens were to conduct seminars or trainings and encourage public participation on the services and programs of the LGU, organize clean and green projects, and to improve programs and services. For conclusions, the citizen satisfaction in environmental management programs is satisfactory. This indicates that the citizens' rating with the LAZO's environment-related programs and services generated good reactions. The municipality of Lazo must enhance interventions for solid waste management and wastewater management. Respondents were mostly aware of the environmental management, particularly the community-based greening projects, solid waste management, and cleanup programs on projects. They were less aware on programs to control air pollution and wastewater management. Therefore, the municipality of Lesos should improve public awareness along these programs. It is recommended to enhance solid waste management, wastewater management, and air pollution control programs. Interventions must be made to encourage people's participation in these programs, most especially to those who dispose their garbage by burning them. Conduct of seminars about proper waste disposal will probably help resolve this problem. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
That was Miss Jayani Loyekla from Aklan State University. To inform our Zoom participants, we are in track 4, Environmental Crisis and Management, and we are currently watching research presentations under this track. To evaluate Ms. Yekla's paper presentation is Dr. Francis Anna C. Ma'am, you may now address your questions.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations to our presenter, in this particular topic. I just have here few questions or clarifications. Aside from the survey checklist, what other tools are you using to validate the responses from our respondents?
Okay, a good thank you, ma'am, for the question. We only use the questionnaire, but then before we finalize the responses, we are having the back checking, ma'am, in order to ensure that the respondents really responded, or the response indicated in the responses in the questionnaire is really from the respondents. We do back checking, ma'am.
Okay, just a follow-up from that one method you have mentioned, back
Yes,
checking.
ma'am.
How did you do that? How did you do that? How did you implement that method?
Uh, we have kasi ma'am the probability respondent. So as mentioned in the presentation, we are using the Kish grid. From the Kish grid, there we can identify now the probability respondent. So we are following a map, the spot map, wherein it indicates there the probable respondents, the household with probable respondents. Now, we have the field supervisors who validates and really go back to the field to back check the responses of the respondents.
Okay, so one of your conclusions, it was stated that there is a high rate of satisfaction among the respondents. Now, have you also validated this, your conclusion or the result from your survey in reality? They said that,
sorry po.
yeah, okay, go ahead.
The satisfaction was, there is an individual satisfaction derived per service indicator. And there's also another portion in the questionnaire wherein it generates a general satisfaction among all naman the services provided sa environmental management programs.
Okay, so in reality, what is your observation? How is the environment of Aklan? Based
Speaking
on
of,
the responses from the respondents on their environmental management program.
Their responses and satisfaction concludes the real situation of environment in Aklan, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you so much. I hope that you will be able to communicate your research results to the as basis in formulating policies of Aklan. Thank
Yes
you
po.
once
We
again.
already, ma'am, we already conducted utilization conference regarding the results of this study.
Okay, that's
Thank
good.
you, ma'am.
Just
Opo.
keep going.
Yes po. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Dr. C. And congratulations to Jayani Loy Yekla for presenting your paper.
Thank
Our
you,
next
sir.
presenter is from Palumpon Institute of Technology. He will be presenting his paper with the title Clerectinian Corals in Selected Areas of Camotes Sea, Central Philippines in EDGE and IUCN Red List of Threatened Species. Let's welcome Mr. Jason G. Tuang Tuang.
A pleasant day to all the participants, organizers, and facilitators of the Second International Conference on Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development. It is with great pride and honor to present a research study on behalf of the highly esteemed and well-respected researchers in the field of marine biology, Professor Sinona Cesar and Dr. Humberto R. Montes, entitled Scleractinian Corals in EDGE and IUCN Red List of Threatened Species in Selected Areas of Camotes Sea, Central Philippines. This is the outline of my presentation. First, I'm going to talk about the background of the research project, followed by the introduction, the objectives of the study, the methodology used, the results and discussion, and lastly, the conclusions. This research study is a product of two research programs. First, we have the CHED-funded research program entitled Marine Biodiversity Conservation in Cuatro and Camotes Islands, Camotes Sea, Central Philippines for Sustainable Marine Economy, and the local government unit of Palumpon funded research program on marine biodiversity assessment in the coastal areas of Palumpon, Leyte, Eastern Visayas, Philippines. Scleractinian corals or hard corals in the country are in peril due to numerous human and environmental stressors and damages. And these damages to coral reefs result in the losses in fisheries, tourism, and biodiversity, as well as there is a higher risk of extinction for hard corals, which leads to loss in evolutionary pattern. However, there is a greater loss for hard corals which are evolutionary distinct. These are the hard corals that diverge from their family tree thousands of years ago. Some of these evolutionary distinct hard corals are also in the threat of extinction. That is why the Zoological Society of London launched the Evolutionary Distinct and Globally Endangered or EDGE program based on the evolutionary and genetic distinctiveness of the species as well as their status in the International Union for the Conservation of Nature Red List, which prioritize the conservation of EDGE species to prevent loss of populations. This includes several species of mammal, reptiles, sharks, and of course, hard corals. In the country, mainly coral cover were assessed during monitoring activities. Reporting and conservation of EDGE hard coral species were scarce due to less studies or no research that have been done before. And it is important to have a localized documentation of EDGE hard coral species so that they should be incorporated in the policies regarding marine conservation, because conservation of biodiversity promotes sustainable coastal development and as well as combat the risk of extinction, particularly the hard coral species listed in the EDGE. Thus, it is imperative to identify, document, and report the presence of local EDGE species to include in the conservation priority. With this, we came up with these following objectives. First, to identify and document hard coral species listed in the EDGE and the IUCN Red List in the sampling areas. Second, report the existence of EDGE hard coral species to the policymakers. And lastly, recommend amendments of existing policies for the conservation and protection of EDGE hard coral species and reef-associated organisms. This is the flow of the study. We randomly select the site, followed by dive assessment through scuba diving, and then the photos that were gathered during the dive assessment were processed, and the colonies that were captured were identified using the Corals of the World Book by Vera. These are the sampling sites. These are the selected coastal areas in Camotes Sea, Central Philippines. As you can see in the map, it is highlighted there, the Cuatro Islas Protected Landscape and Seascape, the Pasihan Island, which is a part of the Camotes Group of Islands Protected Landscape and Seascape, and lastly, the coastal waters of the Palompon Leyte. For data collection, in each station, we delineated a 75-meter by 25-meter sampling area where 5 transect lines were randomly laid in the upper reef slope of the coral reef. Transect photographs along each transect lines were captured. We also photographed colony shots of the hard corals and photos of the corallite cups of the colonies to confirm identification. And these are the documented EDGE coral species in the sampling areas. We have Fimbriaphilia ancora, we have Heliophongia actiniformis, Lobophilia serratus, Pachyceres rugosa, Physogera lintestiniani, Turbinaria mesenterina, Turbinaria heroensis, Turbinaria stellulata, Moselea lastistelliata, and lastly, Turbinaria peltata. This table presents the presence of the documented EDGE hard coral species in the sampling area. As you can see, there are 7 species that were common in all the sampling sites. And these are the Fimbriaphilia ancora, Heliophongia actiniformis, Lobophilia serratus, Pachyceres rugosa, Physogera, Turbinaria mesenterina, and Turbinaria stellulata. On the other hand, Turbinaria heroensis and Turbinaria peltata were not found or recorded in Cuatro Islas, but they are documented in the 2 other sampling areas. And the species Moselea latistelliata was only found in the coastal waters in Palompon Leyte. All of these EDGE hard coral species that were recorded in all the sampling sites can only be found in the Indo-Pacific region. In fact, Moselea latistelliata, Lobophilia serratus, Turbinaria heroensis, and Turbinaria stellulata are rare in nature. And the other species documented were common and widely distributed in the Philippine waters as well as in the Indo-Pacific region. The presence of these EDGE hard coral species can be used as basis in the creation and amendment of conservation policies as part of the conservation plans of the stakeholders before they lead to extinction, which could significantly impact biodiversity in the marine environment, especially that the 2 of the sampling areas were under the National Integrated Protected Area Systems, or NIPAS, enacted by the Republic Act number 7586, which is the NIPAS law, and the Republic Act number 11038, or the expanded NIPAS law, which promotes conservation of biodiversity for sustainable development. Thus, stakeholders must unify to come up appropriate management strategies integrating the presence of these threatened hard coral species. As a summary, the edge hard coral species were recorded and documented.
That was Mr. Jason Tuang Tuang. Sir, as much as we want to hear the whole content of your presentation, however, your recorded video has reached the time limit, sir. But nonetheless, you'll proceed to the Q&A. Mr. Jason, your evaluator is Dr. Riz Rupert Ortiz. And I hope you are on board and now ready for this portion. Dr. Ortiz, may we hear from you, sir?
Thank you, Sir Jeff. Pleasant afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon, Professor Jason Tuang Tuang. Sir Jason, are you around?
Yes, sir. I'm around po. Wala lang po akong video because I'm experiencing an intermittent internet connection po here in Colombo.
So your research is into biodiversity conservation and coastal development.
Yes po.
In order to reduce biodiversity loss, what are the factors that we should look into, Professor Tuang Tuang? Actually, we did not receive your full paper, and we're only coming up with our questions based on your presentation.
Yes. Hindi po ba? I actually sent my my full paper together with this video, pre-recorded video po. But anyway, to answer your question po, there are actually many parameters that we'll be able to measure the reduction of biodiversity. And I must tell you po that this paper that I presented to you is just a part of a bigger project or study that we have conducted po in those sampling areas.
Okay, so given the current extinction crisis of our reef building corals, what would you suggest? What's the best solution in order to preserve these threatened species, Professor Tuang Tuang?
Sir, aside from proper reporting, because we also studied the cover.
I think we lost Professor Jason.
I guess.
Can you hear me po?
Ayan. We can hear
Hello,
you
sir?
now, Sir Jason.
Yes po. Actually, this is just a part of, as what I've said, this is a part of a bigger study. We actually have a study on to measure the status of coral reefs, and as we actually reported the results of aside from the status of the coral reefs in the sampling areas, we also included the presence of these threatened hard coral species because they are also important to note that endangered na nga po sila, and then they are evolutionary distinct. So as what I've said in the presentation, there is a greater loss if they lead to extinction po.
I think that would be all, Sir Jeff. Congratulations, Professor Jason Tuang Tuang.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ortiz, and congratulations, Mr. Jason Tuang Tuang, for presenting your paper. Our next presenter has a back-to-back presentation, ladies and gentlemen, since we had him already this morning, indeed a research enthusiast. He has a paper entitled Decoupling Household Carbon Emissions and Affluents in the Philippines, a quantile regression approach. Let's welcome Mr. Moses Neil V. Sereno.
Good day, everyone. My name is Moises Neil Vicerino, and I'm going to present to you my paper entitled Decoupling Household Carbon Emissions and Affluents in the Philippines using a Quantile Regression Approach. Now, let me share you my slides. This study focuses on the household because households directly or indirectly contribute to the surging increase of carbon emissions in the atmosphere. It also investigates whether rising influence affects carbon emission differently. So it looks at the distribution approach as to how emission changes as households become more affluent. Now, in the issue of climate change, the IPCC noted that there has been strong and clear evidence of human influence on the climate perturbations, specifically on the changes and alarming concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. These emissions are the result of energy use propelling economic activities. So households contribute to this by consuming goods and services. Now, Ben and Dawalatavi in 2015 emphasized that households' consumption behavior is of importance or crucial in devising policy because it is revealed that in developed countries, 80% of the energy use and the carbon dioxide emitted are a consequence of consumer demand and household consumption. However, in the Philippines, there's limited study on that. So hence, we tried to fill this gap in the literature by looking at households' influence to the carbon emissions in the atmosphere. Now, if you look at this, why the issue is important, because in around 2007, and for the first time in history, the aggregate carbon emissions from the developing countries, that includes the Philippines, surpassed that of the developed countries. So in fact, in the last decade, there has been a plateau of carbon emission among OECD countries. But from developing countries, you see a sharp increase. So it jeopardizes the global effort in trying to reduce emission, and the focus has and it has to refocus now with developing countries because of its surging increase in emission. Now, this study looks at affluence because if you notice here, there is a strong positive correlation between emissions and wealth as measured by the gross domestic product. Now, this study tries to look at whether we can decouple, so that means we can still grow, but our emission will also not grow. Hence, this study is anchored on the concept of environmental Kuznets curve, where Kuznets proposes an inverted U-shaped kind of relationship between income and environmental degradation. That means for a given society, the environmental pressure or environmental degradation is expected to increase at the early stages of growth, but eventually it will reach a peak, okay? And then households will now start, or countries or societies will now start to take care of the environment. Now, this is quite interesting because we can just leave the market as it is, because later on this theory proposes that without government intervention, so the market or behavior shows that we will take care of the environment as society progresses. However, if we look at the threshold or the turning point, then that's critical, whether we'll be able to achieve that level of income before there's the turning point. And that's one of the main aim, looking at into the income distribution of household. At what level do we actually tend to care? At what level of income do you tend to clean, or you see a declining pressure in the environment? So the aim of the study generally is looking at a relationship, whether it's possible to decouple emissions and affluence, but more specifically, we look at household consumption and its embedded carbon emission, and then we look at relationship between emissions and investigate the relevance of the environmental Kuznets curve to look at decoupling, and then we also look at some critical characteristics that might influence emission, and then some policy inputs in curbing emissions. Now, the main challenge here is that we do not have a specific data that reflects carbon emission from household consumption. So what we are doing is we are estimating it at two stages. So the first stage is we extract emission intensity from what our economy is producing, and then from all those production, we will match what are the households are consuming. So it's a bit more complicated, as there are input-output table to match with the family income and expenditure survey. But to summarize it, so we have the GTAP sectors, which is the global average in terms of carbon intensity or emission intensity. Then we match it with our input-output sectors. So this is a bit tricky because there's 57 aggregate sectors in the GTAP, and then our IO is composed of 240 sectors. So there's the matching that took place, and then you can derive carbon intensity. Then we look at household consumption. So from here, we look at household consumption and see what are the things that we're actually taking from the economy. From there, with your carbon intensity, we look at expenditure. So we have an estimate for household emission at each category. So there are 175 categories in the household consumption. So and after that one, so after estimating, so we look at pooled regression and then quantile regression. So our quantile regression is an improvement in the literature because we now look at distribution. So that means we look at the 25th quantile, compared it with the richest quantile. So it's not an average or mean-based regression, but we actually look at now the distribution, those who are in the lower quantile, and then those in the upper quantile, and also we look at in the middle quantile. So it shows that household consumption, I think it conforms with the literature that our most intensive carbon emission is coming from those energy intensive consumptions such as fuel and light and transportation. When we also aggregate this one between urban and rural, we can observe that urban households have more than double the emission of the rural households. And then with this aggregate with income quintiles, this is our main point of interest. So we are looking at that there's five-fold difference between the highest quintile, that's our richest group, compared to our poorest group. So we simply divided our distribution by 5, so then we come up with our income quintile. Now let's look at the first stage, which is the OLS regression, and try to look at the relevance of environmental Kuznets curve. As you notice, there's a positive elasticity. That means an increase in income translates to higher carbon emissions from the household side. But when we incorporate the squared term, you see it's negative. The first the levels is at positive, and then the squared term is negative. That's actually quite good. That means there is an increasing emission as we become affluent, but it will reach a certain threshold and then starts to decline. So it's an inverted U-shape. However, when we compute the threshold, you need to have at least around 15 to 20 million household income per year before this can actually happen. Now, its implication is that it would take long time before we actually achieve that threshold of income, and it might be too late for the environment. So that means government intervention has to come in terms of controlling or curbing emission. So when we look at the scatter plot, we see that there's the aggregate of emission, and then as income increases, we see here a striking difference. Now we look at our main result, which is on quantile regression. So if you notice, the elasticity changes from the lowest quintile to the highest quintile. So there's a difference in magnitude, but the consign is consistent across levels, that as households become more affluent, whether you are at the bottom or at the top, it translates to an increase in emission. But the effect is different, because if you look at the magnitude, here we have the lowest quantile, it's 0.76, and here at the highest quantile, it's around 0.82. So if we are aiming to look at curbing emission, so it's good to not have a policy that cuts across, but rather we look at first those who are highest in terms of emission, and that's on the rich group. When we try to graph, also it shows that our coefficient here at the highest quantile, we see more increase in emission, and that's my main message, that an increase in income will translate to higher increase in emissions, especially for households in the upper quantile relative to the lower quantile. And unless there are changes in consumption pattern, we would be expecting more increases in emission as households become more affluent. So in terms of policy, policymakers should consider and look at investments in less carbon intensive sources of energy to decouple our economic growth with household carbon emission. And the focus should look at it at, I think, the upper quintile and not really at the bottom quintile. And that ends my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
That was Mr. Moises Neil Vicereño. And to initiate the Q&A, let's welcome Dr. Victoria Naboya.
Okay, so good afternoon once again, and I'm so lucky to have again Mr. Sereno as the presenter whom I will be asking again. And that was so nosebleed, Mr. Sereno, because of the analysis. Now, again, at least more or less when I tried to look into your first paper presented this morning, and this time is now trying to look into the contribution of the household. But again, my question is, from literature again, because I am into science, to our presenter, Mr. Sereno, it's already been known that the greatest contributor of carbon emissions are usually anthropogenic in nature, meaning these are man-made. Now, this study just trimmed down to household carbon emissions, am I right? So what makes it different from the previous studies? When I tried to look into literature, there were already studies conducted onto the decoupling economic growth from carbon dioxide emissions. As usually, these were done in China and in other countries in Europe. So what makes your study unique?
Yes, thank you very much, ma'am, for that question. It's true that it's an established fact that the latest climate change we're experiencing is attributed to human activities, and these human activities are generally aggregated for particular economy, like what kind of energy we are using to produce a particular goods, in producing cars, in producing airplanes, and in producing our clothes, in producing TVs, computers, everything that we do. So those are like consumption based. Now, from all those production, this is what we are trying to look at, how much actually the household is consuming. Because like if you produce a lot of cars, a particular household will only buy 1 or 2 cars. It depends on the range. So we are trying to look at how intensive are these cars, and we aggregate per household. So much of the studies in the literature are particularly from developed countries. So if you look at literature, and less on the developing countries, except for BRICS like Brazil, Russia, Latin America, and South Africa, because they are the next generation countries, and they are really producing a lot of emissions from their action, fueling, using coal activities. But on aggregate, look at, it's the aggregate of developing countries. So it's also good to look at, like for the Philippines, like the household, and our nationally identified NDCC that we commit to IPCC that we will reduce our emission by 70%. So if we look at our households, can we do that? Can we make that commitment to reduce by 70%? And to actually check is we look at what are the households consuming that we can start reducing. It's not just so clear sa karon nga presentation, but we can actually disaggregate consuming and other things. So I think its contribution is basically on the household. We can further disaggregate by provinces, by region if you want to study for the Philippines in particular.
Just a last question to the moderator. With the results, the implications made by your study, what policy would you suggest to policymakers to reduce household carbon emissions?
The immediate policy, what they can think of is taxing, if we put a tax on consumption. But taxing is a bit tricky because it cuts across all sectors. So, but what we are suggesting in the study is to look at the rich, because they are the one that's fueling more of the emissions, and not really at the lower bottom of the distribution. Like for example, if we tax gasoline, everyone is affected, and even the poor is affected. It's the same tax. So what we are proposing, if we can have a progressive tax, it depends on the income bracket or the class. So that policy, that's what this study is trying to contribute, to have that form of disaggregated policy and not a cut across policy for everyone.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sereno. I'm done, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naboya, and congratulations, of course, to Mr. Moises Nilvi Sereno. Now let me introduce to you our fourth presenter. She is from Visayas State University, also and has the paper Gender Differences of Farmer Beneficiaries of Yolanda Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Program. We have Charis C. Verdeda.
Good day, everyone. I am Miss Yaniloy D. Yekla of Akron State University.
So according to our committee, the presenter that I was able to announce has no recorded video yet. So our decision is to proceed to the next presenter. Let me introduce to you our next presenter. She is from Cebu Normal University, and she has the paper entitled Waste and the Water Management Practices and Environmental Attitudes of the Riparian Communities in Sapangdaco River in Toledo City, Cebu, Philippines. Let's welcome Miss Marchi T. Picardal.
Good day to all of you. Our study is about water and waste management practices and environmental attitudes of the riparian communities in Sapandaco River in Toledo City, Cebu, Philippines. I am Marchi T. Picardal, and with me are my colleagues from Cebu Normal University. This study is anchored on the Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which is clean water and sanitation. There is a growing concern about the availability of water in sufficient amount and quality. Unfortunately, due to an overpopulation and industrialization, there is now an urgent move towards sustainable planning and management of water resources for economic growth and productivity. Before an integrated water management plans can be designed and developed, there must have the assessment of target sectors and populations, including demographic, economic, social, and cultural characteristics of these populations that are more relevant to water consumption. This article will examines how the socio-demographic characteristics of residents in the riparian communities of Sapandaco River in Toledo City, Cebu will serve as an important factors in understanding and predicting attitudes and behavior of residents in relation to the river water utilization and their waste disposal practices. Sapandaco River is situated in the province of Cebu, Philippines, wherein the current river water quality could be attributed to the domestic waste disposal practices and utilization of this by these riverside dwellers. The study aimed to determine the following information from the residents along the Sapandaco River, such as socio-demographic profile, waste disposal practices, anthropogenic activities, water utilization, potential health impacts of their practices towards the Pangdaco River, and the environmental attitudes of these riparian communities. This information will serve as baseline data for policy guidelines on the river sustainable river use and management, as well as preservation. Now, the methods of the study was conducted at the communities residing near the Sapandaco River in Toledo City, and this location is usually previously known as Hinulawan River, with an approximate length of 12 kilometers. There were three communities identified as study sites, namely the downstreams, the midstream, and the upstreams portion of Sapandaco River. Riverside dwellers along the river were the participants of the study. Through random sampling, there were 571 residents who were selected as respondents to answer the survey questionnaire. There were 143 from the downstream community, then 214 for both midstream and upstream portions. So the social health survey was adapted with modification from the close-ended questionnaire of Picardal et al. 2012 was utilized for the data collection. It has two parts. The first part dealt with the socio-demographic profile as well as the water utilization and anthropogenic activities in the river and waste disposal practices of the riverside communities. And then the second part asked about the potential health impacts with items concerning the diseases and the type of and the causes of illnesses and the form of medications they administered. Another tool utilized in the study was the environmental attitude survey with four constructs, namely for environmental attitude, namely concentric concern, environmental movement activism, human utilization of nature, and altering nature. And there were also 20 selected questions from the environmental attitude inventory that were used to measure these constructs. The second part consisted of five Likert-type questions that assessed the respondents' level of agreement as to the use of the Pangdaco River for livelihood and subsistence. So, as to the data collection procedure, the researchers notified the barangay captains for the social health study, and the barangay health workers were the one who were asked for who were given instruction by the barangay captain to assist the researchers, and they were briefed for their assistance as to the administration of the survey questionnaires. However, before they were asked to conduct survey, they were trained by the principal researchers beforehand. The respondents were asked to answer the questions orally using the language they are and words that they were most comfortable with, specifically Bisaya. So data collected from the social health survey were presented using tables and graphs highlighting the frequency and percentage of the respondents. For the environmental attitude data, it was analyzed using Pearson R correlation um, using SPSS. Now, the result of the study, as to the demographic profile of the household members along the Sapangdaco River, majority of the respondents in the three sites have an estimated monthly income of more or less than 10,000 pesos, and only very few earned 50,000 and above. This is already converted from dollars to pesos, and only in the midstream site where those earning 50,000 above can be found. Majority are relatively younger to early adulthood. And in the upstream side, significant number of senior adults are found. Majority of the residents have elementary to high school level of education, and very few in the downstream had reached college level. Strikingly, there are significantly few residents who reported to have no education at all, both for the three sites. As to the riparian residents who rely most of their domestic activities on the river water use, as evidenced by the graph, similar findings were reported in the studies of Picardal et al. 2012 and Bongkayaw et al. 2015, where both beneficial purposes such as bathing and washing laundry were reported. However, some residents disposed or reported to have disposed their human and animal waste on or around the river, and some kept unfortunately undergo quarrying activities. So these activities may have caused the degradation of river water quality, although these anthropogenic activities have recently decreased since the water district was established in the area, and the EMB of as classified for river water quality the Sapang-Dako River. So there are still some who still use water for domestic purposes for economic reason because they wanted to save money from from the water district. As well as fishing in the river is continuously practiced for sustenance along with quarrying activities due to the demand for sand and gravel. This graph shows here, other than the river water, residents have several other choices for the access of clean water, especially because they are now served by their city water district. On a positive note, they reported to have used rainwater, which is a sustainable practice by the residents. Unfortunately, a significant number of residents also have used wells or public wells for their household activities, and most likely the water source of these wells is the river water, which may explain why the volume of water in the area has decreased since. Figure 3 shows that most residents are actively involved in indiscriminate and improper waste disposal, where the type of waste are commonly hazardous solid waste such as motor oil, pesticides, batteries, among others, by either throwing in the uncemented canals or burying in the ground or burning them in an open area. Such activities can lead to pollution of the groundwater source as chemicals will leach into the porous soil and will um, degrade the water quality. On a positive note, the direct disposal of any type of water of waste directly into the river water is no longer practiced due to the legal mandate by the DNR-PNRO concerning the protection of the Sapang-Dako River with corresponding penalty if caught. As to the figure on health impact, the figure presents the diseases that afflicted the riparian residents, where respiratory diseases were very common, followed by the gastrointestinal problems. There are also skin-related diseases, which are often caused by bacterial and fungal infection. Although there is no direct evidence linking these diseases to the use of river water, it cannot be discounted the fact that majority of these residents are still using the river water either through the wells or may have directly used them still for domestic purposes. In terms of environmental attitudes of the riverside dwellers, there is moderate positive correlation between
That was Miss Marchi T. Picardal from Cebu Normal University. Now we proceed to the Q&A portion. Miss Marchi, your evaluator is Dr. Ortiz. Sir, you may take the floor. Once again, let's welcome Dr. Rupert Ortiz for the evaluation. Dr. Ortiz, sir. Sir, kindly unmute your microphone. Okay, sir.
Prof.
We can now hear you, sir.
Thank you, Sir Jeff. The study focused on providing us a comprehensive understanding of the environmental practices of the residents along Sapang Daku River in Toledo City. Professor Picardal, what do you think is the most pressing concern or problem confronting the Sapang Daku River?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ortiz, for that question. Actually, why we chose Sapang-Dako
We
River
can
is
hear you,
because...
Professor Picardal.
Ah, Wait.
Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me po?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Actually, the reason why we chose Sapangdako River as the study site is because it's one of the very few remaining rivers in Cebu City that has not yet dried up. And before the river quality was good, but um, as time goes by, the river water quality has been classified by the Environmental Management Bureau as getting poorer and poorer. That's why we chose this study to be conducted in Sapangdako River. And we wanted
Okay.
to know also if as to the interaction of the riparian communities or the riverside dwellers with the river water use.
Okay, so that we could enjoy and attain a healthy river system, what project or activity would like to suggest, Professor Picardel, most especially on the conservation of Sapang-Dako River?
Okay, as there is an existing policy mandated by the Provincial Environmental Management provincial DNR, but they have this program empowering the residents to become bantay kalikasan. So I think the project that we can I think it's too premature to recommend for a project based from our study unless we do longitudinal study by going back to that site after 2 to 3 years perhaps and see if the project really work, the behavior of the community are still the same with our data that we have collected in our study po. But
Okay.
we would like we would like to capacitate the community with livelihood projects so that they will not anymore engage with the use of like quarrying and river polluting water po.
Okay, so I think that would be all. Thank you, Professor Picardel, and congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Ortiz.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ortiz and Ma'am Marchi Picardal. At this point, we will go back to Ma'am Charis C. Verdida from Visayas State University, who was the paper titled Coping Mechanisms of Men and the Women Farmers Beneficiaries of the Yolanda Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Program in Region 8.
Good day, everyone. I'm Charis Perdita from the Visayas State University, and I'm going to present to you the study entitled Coping Mechanisms of Men and Women Farmer Beneficiaries of the Yolanda Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Program in Region 8. To start with, Super Typhoon Yolanda, internationally known as Haiyan, brought destruction to central Philippines, especially eastern Visayas, on November 8, 2013. According to the Department of Agriculture, the estimated damage to livestock, crops, fisheries, and infrastructure amounts to 28.86 billion pesos. In response to the damages brought by the typhoon, former President Benigno S. Aquino III signed the Yolanda Rehabilitation and Reconstruction Program, or YRRP. The YRRP program aims to build back better the farming communities damaged by Super Typhoon Yolanda. So there are two YRP subcomponents. So first is to enhance extension support, education, and training services. Second, to conduct of participatory action on farm research. So this study generally aims to determine the coping mechanisms of men and women farmers, specifically describe the socio-demographic and farm characteristics of the YRP beneficiaries. Second, to assess whether men and women farmers have differences in their coping mechanisms. And lastly, determine the current status of the farmers. For the methodology, the researchers use a descriptive and quantitative research design in collecting the data from the respondents, such as their socio-demographic characteristics, economic factors, general characteristics of their farm, and how they deal with the damages brought by the super typhoon. So the study is carefully designed to ensure that all data needed were gathered. So this map shows the location of our study. The participants in the study are farmers from Region 8 who experienced the wrath of Typhoon Yolanda in year 2013. So we interviewed farmers from Biliran, Eastern Samar, Leyte, and Southern Leyte. For the data collection, researchers coordinated with the LGU, and at least 3 farmers in different associations were interviewed in different municipalities. And also, a pre-tested survey questionnaire was used to gather information from the farmers. And then the collected data were then aggregated and cleaned before the analysis. For the data analysis, we use descriptive statistics to summarize the data and present frequency and percentage of the variables. And we also use regression to identify the factors affecting better status of the respondents. And the data analysis is done in IBM's PSS statistics and Stata 15. So here's our econometric model used for the factors affecting better status. So our dependent variable is better, and at the right side is our independent variables. So for the results and discussion, for the socio-demographic characteristics, as we can see in the graph, we can see that 37% there were 37% males and 63% females. And most of our respondents are married. And in terms of educational attainment, most of the respondents have only reached elementary level. So for the average age of our respondents is 56 for males and 52 for female. This implies that our farmers are getting older. So there is an average household size of 5, which is common in a typical Filipino family. And also, male farmers have an average of 25 years of experience in farming, while female farmers have an average of 22. For farm characteristics, the average land area of the respondents is 1.35, and most of our respondents are tenants and have flat farmlands. So we asked the farmers about their coping mechanisms after the Typhoon Yolanda. So the first coping mechanism that is establishment of farmers' organization. According to farmers, they learn to establish organization to lessen their vulnerability to risk in farming and to get more economic benefits. And then second is through praying, which means our farmers are spiritually resilient. And then followed by participation in community activities. So in general, the coping mechanisms adopted by our farmers were both the same for both sexes. So this graph shows the problems encountered by the respondents. So out of all problems listed, pest and disease infestation ranks as the most concerning problem for both sexes. According to them, numerous kinds of unfamiliar pests and diseases that are more difficult to control emerge after the super typhoon. Then followed by problems with co-members. Farmers admitted that they are experiencing disagreement with other members of the association regarding several issues, such as profit transparency in active members and the division of labor among members, which sometimes affect their unity. And followed by lack of capital and natural calamities. In general, both men and women have the same ranking of most of the problems indicated. So we also asked farmers about their needs or suggestions in addressing the problems encountered in farming. So most of our farmers suggests to have an additional financial assistance to purchase farm inputs such as fertilizers and gardening tools, which will be used in carrying out their agricultural activities, then followed by additional trainings and seminars to learn new techniques and to acquire additional technical knowledge about farming, because most of our respondents confess that they are having only known the traditional way and even having no idea on how to operate the machineries given by the government. So this graph shows the current status of the farmers. So almost half of the respondents perceived to be in better status. However, there were 17.60% male and 22.60% female said to become worse after the typhoon. This is because their major sources of livelihood have not fully recovered from the destruction brought by the super typhoon. For instance, coconut farmers are still not earning since it takes 9 years for it to fully develop, to bear fruit. So here's the result of our regression analysis in factors affecting better status. So out of 16 variables, only 4 are significant. So income is significant at 10% because farmers tend to recover better since their income can support their needs, for example, food consumption, utilities, medical expenses, housing repairs, and etc. to live their day-to-day lives after the typhoon. Then, attained higher education is also significant since knowledgeable individuals tend to well-inform, making them more aware on how to deal effectively with the crisis, and also live in relationship as compared to singles tend to have a 26% probability of being much better after Yolanda, and also the variable rent is also significant because renters strive to become productive to pay the cost of rent as compared to landowners who may not be pressured to do so. So by that we conclude that majority of the respondents are married and has an average household size of 5 members. Male respondents have longer experience in farming. Additionally, majority of the respondents are also land tenants and have flat farmlands. Most of the respondents have only reached elementary level. Men and women have similar coping mechanisms employed after Typhoon Yolanda. Most of the farmers establish farmers' associations to lessen risk in farming because it also enables them to receive assistance from government projects, since most of these projects are given per associations and not individually. And almost half of the respondents.
That was Miss Charis C. Verdida from Visayas State University. For the Q&A, we have Dr. Francis Anna C. Ma'am, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations to our dear presenter in your paper entitled Coping Mechanism, no, for men and women. Okay, I would like to make a follow-up question on the indicators. From your presentation, there are a lot of indicators in coping mechanism. How did you come up with these indicators? And I think you have made mention also that you conducted a pre-tested survey questionnaire. So kindly elaborate on this part. Hello? Did you hear me? Presenter number 12. Hello? Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello
We can
po?
hear you. I guess Miss Verdida has been disconnected. Ma'am Charisse,
Oh,
are you still around, ma'am? You hear our response? Once
let's
again, Ma'am
just wait
Charisse,
for a
are you
few
there?
minutes. Mm.
Okay, ma'am. Let's just wait for the reconnection of Miss Verdida.
Yeah, just for a few minutes so that she will be given a chance to answer questions.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, you can just leave your question to our presenter so that she could prepare also with her answer later on.
We can proceed. Is it okay if I
Um,
chat my questions here in our chat box?
yes, ma'am, you may, ma'am.
Okay, thank you so that we can proceed.
Okay, sure, ma'am. Thank you so much, Dr. Francis Anasi. And we'll get back to you later on, Miss Charisse Verdida from Visayas State University. I assume we have only two presenters left for the afternoon session. Next on the line is from Samar State University. She will be presenting her paper entitled Severity Levels on Coral Reef Bleaching Occurrence as Induced by CO2 and Seawater Temperature Changes over Long Time Periods. Let's have Miss Diana Shane Balindo.
Good day, everyone. I am here to present to you my research on severity levels on coral reef bleaching occurrence as induced by carbon dioxide and seawater temperature changes over long time periods. I am Diana Shane Balindo, and I am from Samar State University. Coral reef and the services it provides are seriously threatened by ocean acidification and climate change impacts like coral bleaching. Carbon dioxide and sea surface temperature are the two most important variables in connection to coral bleaching events. Therefore, this study aims to determine and characterize the effects of carbon dioxide and sea surface temperature anomalies on bleaching occurrence, level of impact on severity, and understand similarities in occurrence and severity levels. For methodology, this study utilized exploratory data analysis technique. Data and information were gathered from different sources. Mean temperature data was derived from National Center for Environmental Information of United States of America. Global coral bleaching data was derived from World Fish Dataverse or Harvard University Dataverse. Atmospheric carbon data in parts per million was derived from our World in Data organization. The areas that were covered in this study were Indian Ocean, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Persian Gulf, Red Sea, North and East Asia, Papua New Guinea, Micronesia, Southeast and Central Pacific, Southwest Pacific, and U.S. Pacific Islands. This data and the different data sets of variables were subjected to different analysis. Multivariate analysis or multivariate principal component analysis was used to depict weight distribution on various categories of bleaching severity types. Cluster analysis was used to identify time periods showing similarities in bleaching occurrence and severity levels, carbon dioxide, and sea surface temperature anomalies. Bivariate and multiple regression analysis was used to determine and characterize the effect of carbon dioxide and sea surface temperature anomalies on bleaching occurrence and its level of impact on bleaching severity. On the results of bleaching severity index, the bleaching severity index with an eigenvector of principal component represents 70.7% of the total variance, the bleaching severity index is equals to or equivalent to 0.582 high plus 0.589 medium and 0.561 low plus 0 unknown. This bleaching severity index emphasize that bleaching severity among selected regions across time periods is mainly characterized by medium categories, followed by high and low level of severity types, which implies that more bleaching occurrences are identified or categorized as medium level bleaching severity. This result is in accordance with previous studies on the prediction and modeling of coral bleaching frequencies and magnitude, and also with that, the study of Donner et al. In 2005 also predicted that the frequency of bleaching occurrence in most regions of tropics will be lower, and that model shows that low intensity bleaching will occur only once in every 2 years. Okay, this dendrogram of cluster analysis represents 4 clusters. The first cluster represented in blue is composed of the different years and the different occurrence of bleaching on those different years. And it is characterized by a low bleaching level. Next, cluster 2 is characterized by only one time or one phenomena, and that is 1998. This cluster 2 is classified to have severe or highly severe bleaching occurrence with relatively high carbon dioxide and seawater temperature anomalies. There are lots of areas of tropical seas that have been affected by this phenomena, and that includes the effect in Western Indian Ocean, which is highly affected by this climatic oscillation. And there's also massive and severe damage of coral cover in India, Sri Lanka, Maldives, granite seashells, according to Maclan in 2020. Another cluster is cluster 4, which is composed of years from 2002, 2003, 4, 9, and 10, which is also classified to be relatively a high bleaching occurrence. And that is followed by cluster 3 from 2000, 2001, 2005 until 2012, which is classified to have as a medium to low severity level occurrence. Now, for effects of carbon dioxide and seawater temperature anomalies on bleaching occurrence, regression model for bleaching occurrence is -2, -25.43 plus 0.0765 carbon dioxide plus 0.64 water anomalies. So this indicates that carbon dioxide significantly predicted the bleaching occurrence, that in every unit increase in carbon dioxide, an increase by 0.0776 units on bleaching occurrence will happen. So again, it is significantly predicted the bleaching occurrence in long time periods. So here, carbon dioxide explained that highly significant portion of the variance in bleaching occurrence in seawater among selected regions of the world. On the effect of seawater temperature anomalies on bleaching occurrence, regression model is bleaching occurrence is equals to -0.717 plus 8.99 seawater temperature anomalies, which suggests that SST significantly predicted independently the bleaching occurrence, wherein every unit increase in SST anomalies, a rise of 8.99 units on bleaching occurrence is expected to occur. On bleaching severity levels as induced by bleaching occurrence among coral reef areas in selected regions of the world, the regression model is bleaching severity is equivalent to negative 8.32 plus 0.4882 bleaching severity levels. Bleaching occurrence significantly predicted the rise of bleaching severity levels. A unit increase in bleaching occurrence will give us a rise of 0.48.22 units on bleaching severity levels. With that, with the use of exploratory data analysis, it is therefore concluded that separately carbon dioxide and sea surface temperature significantly predicted the bleaching occurrence for long time periods among coral reef areas of selected regions of the world. But both does not reveal a simultaneous effects on the occurrence and severity levels of the events. Projections are useful exercise to help plan for the future uncertainty in a dynamic ecosystem like that of coral reef ecosystem and marine ecosystem in general. These have a bearing on the conservation management of coral reef areas of the planet. With that, thank you very, very much, and thank you for listening as well. Good day to each and every one of us.
That was Miss Diana Shane Balindo from Samar State University. Proceeding is the Q&A portion, and Ma'am Shane, your evaluator is Dr. Victoria Naboya. Ma'am, you may now take the floor.
Okay, so good afternoon once again. Congratulations, Professor Balindo, for this wonderful study conducted. And I have noticed that this was already been published in December 2018. Am I right, Ma'am Balindo? Okay, so see, this I was already able to see it online. December 2018, the paper was already been published.
Maybe
So
it is from my, how do you call this? From my research gate.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Sige. So, we have now from the study, so this is interesting because we all know we would like to see the severity of the impact of carbon dioxide and the high temperature, the surface temperature of the bodies of water because we go into the coral reef management. Now, my question, ma'am, after determining, kasi they have, di ba, these factors, considering that all sources of data were taken, and of course, I hope that the data here were all showing yung profiling ba ng characteristics of these bodies of seawater, was it also considered? Kasi di ba iba-iba ang characteristics ng seawater sources?
Yes, ma'am. The data were gathered that were then downloaded was from 1950s to the current until I think 2012, and the same period also was gathered for the temperature, carbon dioxide, so as with the occurrence of the coral bleaching, and from the same sites also.
Yeah, kasi di ba we all know for a fact that every year there is always an increase of the surface temperature of the bodies of water. So more or less, if the data was 2012, so there might be the severity up to this present point in time, right? Now, after knowing the impact of this, so what are the implications or what possible policies may be suggested to the policymakers? Because in our end, we cannot make a policy. So what proposed policies can be suggested to the policymakers for coral reef management?
What I'm going to suggest is that for coral reef management, we have to identify really what areas are, how do you call this, are more prone for this kind of phenomenon, and also identify the coral reefs that have potentials to, what do you call this, to bounce back after the bleaching occurrence, because there are already publication that tells us that some species of corals can bounce back after bleaching, especially the ones that can grow easily, like branching corals. So it would be very important that this ecosystem will also be protected from other anthropogenic disturbances that may, how do you call this, that may give additional impact to the coral community aside from the coral bleaching. And also with carbon emission and rising surface temperature that is already beyond our control. So it is the higher ups or the national government should, I think, go with the different international organizations that are pushing for the limitation of carbon emission, not only of Asia, of Philippines, but of the entire planet.
Yeah, it's really very true. We have to preserve our coral reefs since it's the breeding ground. But ultimately, di ba, ma'am, this bleaching kasi would have an impact on the reproduction process of this of the organisms which are usually found in the coral reefs. Okay, so
Precisely, ma'am.
congratulations, ma'am Balindo, for such wonderful study. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Naboya, and congratulations to Miss Diana Shane Balindo for presenting your paper. Ladies and gentlemen, we're down to our last presenter. Last but never least, of course, she too is from Samar State University, and she will be presenting her paper entitled Spatial Distribution of Mother Trees in Selected Forest over Limestone in Samar Island, Philippines. Let's welcome Miss Jessa B. Madera.
Good day, everyone. This is Jessa Madera, and I'm going to present a study on special distribution of mother trees in selected forest over limestone in Samar Island, Philippines. So, Samar Island is known to be one of the third largest islands in the Philippines that supports various types of habitats. These includes the forest over limestone. This type of forest contains unique plant assemblage and often contains high-level species organisms. This also serves as the primary source of living to some of our Samarans. The idea of increasing global population, which accompanied by continuous generation of forest, draws the attention of some researchers. In this study, there's still a limited study with regard to spatial distribution and this type of ecosystem. So this study might also serve as the baseline data to formulate forest management for sustainability and conservation for future generations and researchers. Generally, this study aims to examine the distribution of mother trees and forest over limestone ecosystem, specifically mother trees identification and its conservation status, identify species diversity, elevational species and distribution, and lastly, determine the relationship between diameter at first height, DBH of mother trees with the corresponding elevation. The study was conducted at Paranas, Samar, specifically at San Isidro Antinani, and Taft Eastern Samar at San Rafael Eastern Samar, and Mulus or Giwan Eastern Samar. Collection of data collection, rapid assessment was conducted at every sites, and the identification of mother trees were done using manuals and comparison of herbariums, also online literatures about cost digital floras in the Philippines. For the tree menstruation, the trees that can be seen along the trail with having greater than 30 centimeter diameter at first height were recorded and geotagged using GPS or global positioning system. And for the mapping, the extracted coordinates are run through the ArcGIS 10.4 software. Data analysis for this species diversity and richness is analyzed using Shannon index and Simpson index. Data comparison for the DBH and elevation, I used Pearson's correlation and one-way ANOVA for the analysis of variance. For the distribution pattern, the spatial analysis pattern at ArcGIS toolbox were used for Ripley's K function. The result shows that there is 170 mother trees among sites. It has a comprised with 21 families and 47 genera, which was dominantly or dominated by the Pterocarpaceae, Myrtaceae, Sapotaceae, and Spendaceae, with the genus species, with the genus of Shorea, Hopea, Santos Daman, and others. The critically endangered species also has been seen at Paranas and Taft site, and Paranas get the highest or get much higher numbers of critically endangered species. So there is some photos at this site of Paranas and Taft. So are the mother trees, Patacama shapoy, especially the Sophia samarensis, which is endemic to the Summer Island only, and Shorea almond. These are the species that are under critically endangered. Moreover, showing these photos of other threatened and economically important species. Example is the Shorea astelosa, or locally known as Yacalis, is the usual trees that cut at the site and used for timber production and housing of some of our villagers. And these famous Apilaria comediana are known as the agar wood that is used for essential oils and expensive perfumes. So the result of species diversity found out that Paranas cat the most diverse among the sites at the elevation of 250 to 300 meters above sea levels. Moreover, the species diversity attributes to the number of species or the species richness at the site. Special distribution of the mother trees were determined and analyzed at the ArcGIS 10.4 software. It was run the coordinates of the mother trees shows that trees are more clustered at smaller distance compared to the larger distance. As was explained, to the observed K value is much higher than expected values, and this also attributes to special species population and neighborhood. Same also to the sites, individual sites. The spatial distribution of mother trees were also analyzed and found out that San Isidro, Tinanay, and Girwan has more clustered at smaller distance compared to Taft, Eastern Samar. This site has more diverse, dispersed distribution. The relationship between mother trees and elevation, Paranas and Taft shows no significant relationship between elevation and elevation and DBH. However, the Gilwan Spring Summer has a weak relationship between the DBH and elevation. So among sites, I compared the variance of the each site between sites, and it was found out that all sites with the elevation has significantly uh, stat, uh, significant, and among sites, piranhas get the higher significant value. Conclusion and recommendations. So for the conclusion is that the summer island is more diverse and intact for having a 170 mother trees recorded, and there's also a critically endangered 8 uh, endangered 1 and vulnerable species of 3. Species diversity found out that at elevation of 150 to 300 meters are above sea level. Some more diverse and elevational species is the Dipterocarpa CA family. Distribution patterns: San Isidro, Tinani, and Gilwan has more clustered distribution compared to Taft that is more dispersed. The relationship between attributes, no showing no significant relationship between the abundance and the elevation, and diameter at breast height and the elevation. However, the trees at the increasing elevation shows that there are more or much larger size compared to the uh, lower elevation. The site also shows that there is a small scale disturbance that found at Paranas and Taft. Example as the unfinished leg of mother trees, or hunting of mammals, and also the collection of agar-breed. Recommendation: this study must uh, produce SEPA, or communication, education, and public awareness, reproduce more planting stacks of the threatened and economically important trees for the situ conservation, and socioeconomic surveys for the communities must also be added to this study.
That was Jessa Madera from Summer State University. To evaluate your paper is Dr. Frances Ann C. Ma'am, Miss Madera is now ready.
Okay. Thank you so much, and congratulations to our last but not the least presenter. So here are some of my observations, comments, and suggestions. Based from your paper and in your presentation, you have 3 major municipalities covered in your study sites. My question now is, how did you identify these study sites? So, if you are using a tool or a method, what is that tool or method that you have been using in identifying the study sites? Hello, please unmute Miss Jessa. Miss Jessa, you cannot be heard.
Ma'am Jessa Madera, kindly unmute your microphone.
And then those is not allowing. Hello?
Yes po. Unmute po.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry for the.
It's okay.
Uh, Hello po. We use the ano po, map. Before we conduct this study, we conducted reconnaissance surveys at 4 sites. Actually, we include the Basay, Eastern Samar. But unfortunately, due to this pandemic, we conducted the studies at 3 sites only. So we follow the map given from the DNR SINP, Summer Island Natural Park, to identify
Okay.
where are
So,
the
meaning
limestone
to
areas.
say, Ms. Jessa, meaning to say that these municipalities as your study sites have already been identified. Am I correct?
Yes, yes po.
Okay.
Their geology po.
Okay. Based on your conclusions, I could see that you have 5 conclusions, no? How would you merge? How would you consolidate and come up only with one concluding statement based from your title? That your title is about spatial distribution. So what's your final statement on this? What's your final conclusion?
It was found out. I conclude. The story concludes that there is more clustered. The spatial distribution of the sites are more clustered, and it must also be
Just continue, just continue. Hello po, Miss Jessa. Just continue po.
the spatial distribution of the mother trees among sites are more clustered at the smaller distance. It's because it was attributed to the different elevations, and the threatened species also are distributed at different sites, except for the areas that has a anthropological distribution, like distraction, like Haggewan.
Okay, now, why do you think this study is so important? And what possible policy that we can propose out of this study?
This, for me, this is important for the future and future conservation of the threatened and critically endangered species like the mother trees that are very responsible for the carbon sequestration and for the ecology. And it is important to determine whether where they are distributed at different sites and the um, and
Hello? Opo.
I think that's and for
Okay.
the policies, there are actually there are it's not our juries to create policies, but
I got your point. I got your point. But somehow, as a researcher, you will provide an aid, no, to the policy, especially the higher authorities. So what you are going to do is you just disseminate, no, disseminate your research findings to the intended users so that this can be really implemented, and this will be beneficial to the stakeholders. Okay, that's the reason why we are conducting the study. Ultimately, the research outputs should be utilized. Okay, so just continue.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you, and I'm done.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Miss Jessa.
Thank you so much, Dr. C, and congratulations, Ms. Jessa Madera, for presenting your paper. By the way, Dr. C, we have here an answer from Charissa, Miss Charis, regarding with your question you have posted on the chat box. The question you have told her is that how did you come up with the coping mechanism indicators? Her answer is this one. We base the coping mechanism indicators from relevant studies, and most indicators were stated directly by the respondents during our face-to-face interview. That was her response, ma'am,
Okay.
regarding with your
Okay.
question.
Okay. Thank you for facilitating my question to the presenter. Okay na po
Sure.
ako doon.
Okay, sure, ma'am. And she has a follow-up sentence. We would like to thank Dr. Francis Ann for her suggestion about the Delphi method.
Use of
We will
Delphi, yeah.
coordinate Delphi method. We will
Yeah.
coordinate with our project leaders about this suggestion. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you po.
Thank you, Dr. C. And of course, Ma'am Charis, for your response regarding with the question that was raised by Dr. C. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our paper presentations for day
Jeff,
2
Sir
of the
Jeff,
second international conference.
Sir
Yes,
Jeff,
ma'am?
Sir, there is a message. Kindly check in the chat box from
Okay, ma'am.
Aklan State University from Irinea. Kindly
Um,
check. Thank
okay,
you.
ma'am, I'll check that message, ma'am. From Aklan. Was that... okay, ma'am. I guess according to the technical committee, that the concern was already responded by the team, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
So once again, that concludes our paper presentations for the day 2 of the second International Conference on Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development. A big thanks once again to our evaluators, Dr. Riz Rupert Ortez, the Vice President for Research Extension and External Affairs in Northwest Samar State University, Dr. Maria Victoria Naboya, the Vice President for Research and Extension in Leyte Normal University, and of course, Dr. Francis Anna C., the Vice President for Academics, Research, and Innovation in Southern Leyte State University. Thank you so much, ma'am and sir. Hence, we award you this certificate for your valuable effort and expertise. And let me read the citation. Certificate of recognition is awarded to Dr. Riz Rupert L. Ortez in grateful recognition for his invaluable insights and inputs rendered as expert evaluator during the second International Conference on Poverty Alleviation and Sustainable Development held on October 21 to 23, 2020. Given this 22nd day of October 2020. Signed by Dr. Marilyn D. Cardoso, the Chair, International Poverty Conference, iPOVCON 2020, and Dr. Benjamin L. Picayo, the co-chair of the iPOVCON 2020. Same certificate is awarded to Dr. Maria Victoria D. Naboya. And same certificate is also given to Dr. Francis Ann C. Let's give them a virtual clap, of course, for their effort and valuable expertise for the evaluation of our paper presentations. And before you leave the room, of course, we have here some reminder from Dr. Ronald Orali, the Vice President for Research and Extension here in Samar State University, that those who were late in the submission of their papers were allowed to present. However, they are not qualified anymore for the paper evaluation, even obtaining the Best Oral Presentation Award. Nevertheless, your paper is of significance, considering that you were acknowledged by the conference committee and had the opportunity to present. Let's have first the attendance link. The attendance or the evaluation link will be, it is now flashed on the screen. You may scan it through your QR code, and access it, of course. Before you leave our room, let's have first a photo opportunity. So I request every participant to please turn on your camera because we're gonna have a virtual photo opportunity. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, kindly turn on your cameras so our technical committee can have a shot of our cameras. Are we now ready? Can I hear you say you are ready?
We are ready.
Yes, of course. How many panels do we have? I guess we have 2 panels, right? So everybody now is ready. Panel 1, kindly give your best smile. Ayan, very nice. And let's have also the panel number 2. Your best smile, the smile of a poverty alleviator. Ay, beautiful faces are now seen on the screen. Ayan. Let's give ourselves a virtual applause, of course, because we did it, and we have just done with the day 2 of our international conference. Day 3 is about to rise. Tomorrow we'll have international keynote speakers, plenary sessions, and the closing program. So please stay tuned with us because tomorrow we still have a lot of surprises for you guys. Let's call it a day. Once again, I'm Jeff, your moderator, and I'm so honored to be with you this day. See you tomorrow. Stay healthy and safe, and God bless us all. Bye-bye, guys. See you tomorrow.